emotional intelligence. The 7 intelligence, multiple intelligences, social intelligence. There's a lot of buzzwords going around today about different types of intelligence. The intelligence I deal with in particular is emotional intelligence. And in this video, yes, all in this video, I'm going to give you my very best material right here. No charge, totally free. You're going to get the foundation of everything I teach, the core of it. I'm not going to be holding back anything for you here to give you a foundation of what it takes to be an emotional genius. Now, my name's Scot Conway. I'm also called Scot Conway, PhD, JD, 8th degree black belt. I spent a lot of time in school to get those letters after my name. Spent a lot of time training in martial arts to get that rank. Highest rank available to a man my age. And all of these things combined, my education and my martial arts experience and some real world experience dealing with people who have very intense negative emotions, and sometimes, of course, dealing with my own negative emotions. If I'm a martial artist with a significant amount of skill, do you want me to have my life governed by emotion? Of course not. That'd be dangerous. And so as a result, I explored the area of emotion. I've had some NLP training, and I've been through psychology classes and social psych classes, been to a number of seminars from a wide variety of teachers. I've read tons of books, listened to other people's programs. And what I'm about to bring you here is pretty uniquely mine. It's one of my signature insights, and it's called the language of emotions. The language of emotions is a path to emotional genius. Now, what do I mean by genius? I use the Mensa standard for genius. Now, if you talk to Mensa, they'll tell you that they're just the high IQ society. They don't claim actually to be geniuses. However, you talk to the average person on the street about Mensa members, and if they know what it is, they go, oh yeah, those people, they're geniuses. So we're going to use the Mensa standard. If you can qualify for Mensa, I'll call you a genius. Mensa has the 2% standard. If you are better than 49 out of 50 people, and you can prove that on the standardized tests, they will consider you for membership. And then you just apply, pay the fee, and you're in. And that's all it takes. So if I can get you to the top 2% of people with emotional intelligence, if I can make you better than 49 out of 50 people on the scale of emotional intelligence in the bell curve of emotionally intelligent people, then you are an emotional genius. I'll often say, you give me 24 hours, I'll make you an emotional genius. I've got 24 lessons in my Language of Emotions 101A and 101B programs. You listen to those, you study those, and depending where you're starting, you may want to listen 2 and 3 and 4 times to really make sure that you understand these concepts. But when you do, you'll be an emotional genius. But you don't have to get the whole 24-hour program. You don't even have to get my book, Emotional IQ. Right here in this video, I'm going to share with you the core of what I teach, my best stuff, right here, right now, for free. Language. Language just means something has consistent meaning. The language of emotion means that emotions are a language. Now let's start breaking this out in very, very broad strokes. We have positive emotions and we have negative emotions. These are the pleasant emotions. We like these. We want more of these. Those are the negative emotions. We don't like those. Those are not fun. We want less of those if we can. Now, I'm going to be focusing here mostly on the negative emotions because that's where the change comes. That's where the change is necessary. The positive emotions I call emotions of duplication. When you're feeling an emotion of duplication, you just want to duplicate what happened. Do that again. Now, sometimes it's a little tricky to figure out what that is, and I could go into a lot more detail, obviously, in a 24-hour program I do. But since I have more minutes than hours now, just understand whatever that is that triggers the emotion, to the extent you can duplicate that, you can duplicate the emotions. Over here in the negative emotions, then, these are emotions of change. When you feel a negative emotion, that emotion is telling you something must change. That there's something going on here that really needs to be different in some way, shape, or form. It's pretty typical for us to consider that something out there needs to change. One of the most common things that needs to change, though, is inside of us. Sometimes it's our perception. Sometimes it's our rules. Sometimes it's something that we have to do differently. In fact, one of the great things about emotions of change is there's almost always something that you can do. That means the power is in your hands. Now, personally, being a martial arts master, I love it when I have power. And that means I can do something about that. That I'm in charge of my emotional experience and I'm in charge of my own life. So let's take a look at some very specific emotions of change. We'll use anger as one quick example. That when you feel anger, that's an emotion that says broken rule. The very simple definition is broken rule. Just remember that anger, broken rule. That means that I have some rule, I have some expectation of how things must be or how things must not be, and my rule has been broken, and that's why I'm angry. So whether you're dealing with an angry customer, you're dealing with an angry boss, or you're dealing with an angry romantic partner, if they are angry, it means that they have some internalized rule, and that rule defines for them what must or must not be, and that rule has been broken. To the extent they're angry at me, it means that I broke the rule. To the extent I'm angry at someone else, it means that I perceive that they broke the rule. Now I just toss in an important word there, is perceive. Because one of the things you do when you're feeling angry is you take a look and try to perceive what's really going on here. Part of it is broken rule. Okay, well there's a double meaning in broken rule. One possible meaning of broken rule is the rule itself is broken. So I get angry at you for something that you have every right to do. Maybe it's the rule itself that I need to change. And there's a whole technique for doing that. To get rid of the old rule and to install a new rule. But anger, that broken rule, tends to trigger a reaction. In fact, all emotions of change have a reaction. We call it the self-protection reaction. The self-protection reaction for anger is impose rule by force. Now, sometimes in the most egregious examples, you'll see someone using physical force to try to get their way, to either stop something from happening they believe must not happen, or to force something to happen they believe must happen. We see that because we have a lot of boys. And every once in a while they get into it, things escalate, and someone pushes, someone shoves, something gets thrown. And they're using physical force, a relatively low level of physical force, but physical force to try to impose their will on somebody else. But you could also be trying to impose your rule by force with a different level of force. It could be manipulation, it could be emotional force, it could be coercion of some sort. It could even be a passive-aggressive, just to try to manipulate someone, to try to make them follow your rule. Now, a better course of action would be to try to communicate effectively, assuming you have a good rule. So either change your rule, or if the rule has been broken, you try to look for effective communication. You want to get them on your side. You can use some communication strategies like understand, define, be understood, or communication strategy like emotional word picture. You can start to stack these and try to work them together. And unfortunately, in a quick video like this, I don't have time to explain what some of these are. But there are key, concrete communication strategies to communicate your rule, make an effective presentation so the other person understands what the rule is and will have an actual interest in following the rule. And that they will understand that it's still their choice, and that's one of the hardest things sometimes for us to let go of, is the fact that it's still their choice. But if we use these strategies so that we can elicit their position and try to help them understand ours, then we're much more likely to get compliance. Same thing when we're dealing with someone who's angry. Instead of arguing with them, we use the same communication strategy. We try to understand what it is they're talking about. We try to elicit their rule from them. And if you just listen, some of those people will tell you what the rule actually is. And sometimes they're not upset about what was actually done, so we don't take our interpretation of that. We listen to what they mean by that. So if I did something to someone, it might be something rather innocuous, and they say, well, I don't know, how dare you do that? How could you show me such disrespect? Well, what you're learning is, okay, they have a rule that says that I'm not allowed to disrespect them. And as part of their definition of that rule, this activity, at least in this moment, fit under that category of disrespect. Now, rather than argue with them about, oh, that's not disrespect, I had every right, well, now I'm just picking a fight. That I listen to them, I hear them out, I apologize for the disrespect, and I tell them, if I had any thought that you were going to take that as being disrespectful, I absolutely would not have done that. So I deeply apologize for that. I had no intention of disrespecting you at all. And to the extent that, I did it and I didn't think about it and that was disrespectful too, I deeply and sincerely apologize. Will you please forgive me for that? And that you can learn to interact with someone and you can gain a lot of knowledge from someone while they're angry. And you just get to stay calm because you understand what's really going on here. Oh, okay, so this person has a broken rule. At least they're taking it out on me, whether I'm the one they're angry at or not. And I have a chance to learn about them. I can learn what the rule is. I can learn how they think things ought to go. And every once in a while, if they have a bad rule, you don't tell them they have a bad rule. You just keep asking questions. And every once in a while, they will realize that they have a bad rule. Like I was having a conversation with the man. I'm just listening and then reflecting back what I'm hearing. And at one point, he stopped and said, well, okay, I might be overreacting a bit because, yeah, I guess that was a little bit extreme. So he's beginning to realize on his own that he has a bad rule. And that when that happens, they're probably about 8 times more likely to change their rule than if I try to force them. So when you're dealing with an angry person, just remember it's a broken rule. Now what is this imposed rule by force thing that goes on? We call that the self-protection reaction. So if I have a hot stove right here and I touch it, my hand's going to yank all the way back. Well, why does it do that? It doesn't need to be way back here. In fact, if I touch a hot stove, it just probably needs to come up just a few inches, and I'm fine. My hand's okay about yay far away, just 3 or 4 inches away. But it's going to yank more like 3 or 4 feet away. What's going on there is, of course, my reaction is trying to protect my hand from being burned on the hot stove. It doesn't need to go that far, but just to be safe, it goes that far. That's that self-protection reaction of imposed rule by force. It's there to keep me safe. It's there to protect the rule. As a built-in assumption, if I have the rule, I have it on purpose. That is there to help me. It's there to protect my life. It's there to accomplish something important. And it presupposes that if the rule was bad, I would just fix it. Unfortunately, there are techniques to do that. We have a whole rule-changing system to pry out bad rules, install new rules, tinker and change rules. Sometimes you just need to tweak it a little bit. Sometimes you need to make it smaller. Sometimes you need to make it bigger. Sometimes you just need to toss it out completely and put in a whole new rule. And that's a whole session in and of itself. Actually, if you really want to get into a stacked level of different techniques, there's a lot of them you could do. I could literally spend hours just on that. Well, I said we go into more than just the one emotion of change. You have another emotion, fear. Fear gets a lot of us. Now, I deal with martial arts. You know, people have a lot of fear around martial arts. Sometimes it's just scary walking in the door to talk to me because they look, oh, this guy's martial arts master. He gets mad. He could break me. Well, first off, if I'm a martial arts master worth the title, I'm the safest one to make angry because I should have the most self-control. But that part aside, that scares people. Why do people come train with me? Well, very often they're afraid of getting beat up by some bad guy out there. And sometimes when they come to me, they're afraid they're going to get beat up in my class as I try to beat them up to train them not get beat up. And I don't teach people that way. But, you know, people are afraid of stuff. Well, what does that fear mean? Well, fear means, simple definition, something's coming, I'm not ready. So fear equals something's coming, I'm not ready. And again, it's a perception. So what do you do there? You take a look at what you think's coming. Are you ready? But there's a self-protection reaction here too. You can guess what it is. With fear, you hide. Whatever hide means to you. Sometimes it's literally physically hide. Sometimes you just avoid something. Sometimes you just procrastinate. Sometimes you have approach avoidance. Sometimes you come up with excuses. Whatever hide means to you. Now, there's this thing running around, I don't even know how old it is, of false evidence appearing real. That's what fear is. That is not true. So if I'm standing in the middle of the road and there's a semi-truck coming right at me, and I think, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by a truck, but no, false evidence appearing real. False evidence, well, bam, then I'm going to get run over. So sometimes fear is exactly right. Sometimes fear is false. But if you know what the emotion means, you can actually take a look and you can see for yourself. So something's coming. Okay, well, what do you think's coming? Really honestly, what do you think it is? And when you look at what you're actually afraid of and why you're afraid of it, what do you think is going to happen to you? What is coming up? You try to be very objective. The next thing is, and am I ready? Sometimes we're very subjective about that too. So what does ready look like? And if you look at what ready looks like, if you're talking to someone else, if I'm telling my children, I mean, I might be going in to take an exam. Like the last major test I took was a real estate broker's exam. And when I walked into that test, oh goodness, there were a lot of terrified professionals there. That they knew what was coming, the test. They didn't know if they were ready. To them, being ready meant walking in absolutely sure they're going to pass. Well, for me, being ready means I've studied, I've learned my material, and what a test is to me is an opportunity to show what I do know and find out what I don't know. And that the Department of Real Estate is going to tell me if what I do know is sufficient. And if what I do know is sufficient, they're going to give me a real estate broker's exam or license, which is what they did, and so I got my license. And if what I learned was insufficient, then they're going to tell me what I was lacking, and I know, okay, I need to go study these things more. A lot of them were terrified because they walk in and what's coming. Well, for them, they know the test is coming, but to them, it means something to them about them. And they feel like, well, if I fail the test, then I'm somehow a failure. That if I put myself into this kind of pressure, then what if I don't make it? And I will have blown it, and then I won't be a broker. And it really deeply impacts their sense of identity. And then they don't feel ready because it's not 100%. They look at a single question, oh, I don't know for sure. I mean, maybe it's A, but I don't know, C looks right too. And on the break between sessions, I had a couple of people were chatting and even came up to me and said, well, you look very relaxed about this. On the one question about the this, did you think it was that or that? And I told him, doesn't really matter. Yeah, I remember the question, doesn't really matter. That part's done. I'm just going to review my stuff for the afternoon session. I'm going to get on the phone with my wife. I'm going to relax. I've already studied the stuff. I'm going to do as well as I'm going to do. And a couple of them headed off to the corner to go study. One woman in particular took that to heart and thought, that's true. I have been studying for this for a long time. And she decided to go grab herself something light for lunch and go have a seat and give her husband a call and just visit for a little while. And she realized, okay, what is coming? Well, the afternoon session's coming. What am I doing? I'm obsessing over the morning session. Well, that's done. That's over with. There's nothing I can do about that. That's no longer coming. So what I was afraid of was finding out later I was wrong, and I want to find out now if I'm going to find out later that I'm wrong. And she realized that that really wasn't terribly productive. And with the self-protection reaction of hide, of course, what's that there to do? That's there to protect you from danger. Sometimes there is danger. You do need to hide. I need to get out of the street before that car runs me over. I do need to avoid the thing that I'm really not ready for, if I can. So when you're dealing with fear, if you find out you are ready, but you still feel the emotion, then it's a matter of courage. Courage means I feel fear, I'm going anyway. That's where you choose. That choice is based on willpower. Here's a simple definition of willpower. I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel. Let me say that for you one more time if you want to write that down. Willpower. I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel. Now, in contrast, you have stubbornness. Stubbornness is I will stick to what I feel no matter what is right. So once you've chosen your course of action, you've done your analysis, you know that this is coming, you know you're as ready as you're going to be, then you just exercise courage to go. But you look at it first, because the fear has information. What if you look at what's coming, and when you really look at it, you find out what's coming really is a scary thing, and you really aren't ready? Well, then you have this gap between you and ready. So what do? What do you need to do to bridge that gap? What do you need to learn? What do you need to practice? What do you need to rehearse? What extra resources might you need? If you walk into a scary situation and you're really not ready, walking in with confidence to the thing you're really not ready for is not going to help you get it done. Believing you can do a thing you do not have the resources to do is not going to accomplish your objectives. So the utility of fear is to make you go look. What is coming? Are you ready? And if not, get ready. If so, then go. Another big emotion is hopelessness. Hopelessness often leads to depression. Now, hopelessness is an interesting one because when people feel it, they tend to generalize. But hopelessness in and of itself is a very narrow emotion. It specifically means exactly what you're doing, exactly the way you're doing it, will never achieve the outcome that you desire. So what do you have to do then? You just have to change exactly what you're doing or exactly how you're doing it to continue to pursue your outcome. The self-protection reaction is to give up. Now that's also there to protect you. It's there to protect you from doing things that just cannot achieve the result. So right here from where I'm standing, I've got 3 doors here. At the moment, 2 of those doors are locked. If I want to leave this room, I cannot go through the door on the left or the door on the right. If I'm going to leave this room, I have to go out through the door in the middle is the actual exit. So if I go over to the incorrect door and it's locked and there's no key and there's no way to open that from this side without the key, I could push, I could pull, I could slide, I could do everything. If nothing in me says, not working, time to stop, I could be stuck at that door until Tuesday of next week, still trying to get out that door. Hopelessness as an emotional impulse is there to say, okay, whoop, hang on a second, this isn't working. Do something different. That exactly what I'm doing, exactly the way I'm doing it will never achieve the outcome I want. I want to get outside this room. I need to try something different. Now if you think about it, even a simple thing, you go and you push, doesn't open. Well, you get that quick impulse that says, oh, pushing isn't working. So what do we tend to do? We tend to pull. And we'll push and we'll pull. Sometimes we'll jiggle it a bit. Sometimes we'll look to see, is there a latch or a lock or something else I need to flip? And so we use this, and it just flashes in so quick that most of us don't even notice it. It's when hopelessness starts to get bigger and bigger. When it's like, this door's not working. Okay, well, is there another door? And then you might go, this door opens. Well, check that out. Okay, well, now I can get out. Well, what if none of those doors work? What if those aren't the answers? What if the answer is I have to call someone who has a key to come open it up because I somehow got locked in the room? And that might be the way out. But you have to keep on checking. Say, that door doesn't work, and that door doesn't work, and that door doesn't work. All of these doors are locked. What do I do? That self-protection reaction to give up is to stop you from doing exactly what you're doing and to stop you from doing it exactly the way you're doing it. And so you want to make a small change and keep tinkering with it. Now, sometimes hopelessness is there to tell you this goal you're trying to get, you can't get there from here. There might be some intermediate steps you need to take. You might need to rethink the goal. So if I'm thinking, okay, well, what I need to do, I need to get out this door so I can be in Hawaii. Well, outside the door isn't Hawaii. I live in the San Diego area. If I go outside the door, I'm in Southern California. I'm not in Hawaii. But there's a lot of intermediate steps I have to take if I want to get all the way to Hawaii. So if I do these steps, I don't get there. So sometimes it's a matter of process and result. If you have a process-result disconnect, you keep trying to use these processes, you keep tinkering with it, but those aren't the processes that produce that result. That you need some different processes. You need to put some different causes in motion to produce that effect. And hopelessness is there to tell you that too. Okay, you tinker with these, all the ways you can think of, that outcome's not still happening. That outcome may not be connected to these things that you can do. So then you need to make a change. Here's another big one, is guilt. A lot of people live with a lot of guilt. Guilt means you violate one of your own highest standards. The self-protection reaction to guilt is self-punishment. Now you might think, self-punishment? How is that a protection? How is that a self-protection reaction? It's there to protect you from doing the thing again. It's also there to protect you from incorporating it into your identity. So long as you feel bad about it, you can say, that's not who I really am. I mean, look how terrible I feel. I'm not the kind of person who thinks it's okay to do stuff like that. I just keep doing it. So that's part of what guilt is there for. It's to protect your identity and protect your behavior. Well, if you have violated one of your own highest standards, at the identity level, you're feeling someone like me shouldn't be doing stuff like this. It's an assault on your identity. The simplest technique is called the point of no return technique. You have to ascertain your point of no return. Simple version without getting a lot of details. You figure out, where can I still control myself? If you keep on doing that thing that makes you feel guilty, it's because somewhere in there you get to that place where you walk up to that decision point and you can't hold your ground. So suppose if you're dealing with alcoholism, we'll deal with that because that's legal, and you struggle with that, and you know, every time I get to this point, I know I'm not supposed to take that drink, and then I do, and then once I take that first drink, I'm done. Well, your issue might not actually be that first drink. Your issue, if you find you take that first drink habitually, is somewhere behind from there. Somewhere back here is where you still have control of your decision making. And the point of no return says that's the line you do not cross. So that's, in a nutshell, very brief introduction of that. But with guilt, just like with anger, sometimes it's the rule that needs to change. Sometimes you didn't do anything that challenges your identity. Sometimes someone's just trying to send you on a guilt trip. And you can deflect a lot of guilt trips, sometimes just by taking a look at what they're trying to make you feel guilty for and thinking, is that really a universal rule? And if it isn't, well, then maybe it's not something I need to do. Like if someone says, like, well, but if you loved me, then you'd fill in the blank. So, okay, well, does it necessarily follow that love always means this? Interestingly enough, sometimes the converse is just like, well, if you love me, you wouldn't keep placing all these demands and expectations on me. So there's a trade-off going on here. You want me to fulfill your definition of love, which might just be, obedience, control, offering up my life to you for you to control like I'm more property than a person. But somehow there's not a reciprocal thing going on here. And so when you're dealing with guilt trips, that's part of what you look at. And then when you stop feeling guilty when someone sends you on a guilt trip, sometimes you can just ask them, are you trying to use a guilt trip to get your way? Most people won't admit to doing that. And if they persist, they say, that looks like another guilt trip to me. Well, why would you use a guilt trip to try to get your way? And then, they're on the defensive instead of on the offensive sometimes. And very often they will stop doing it. So that's a quick introduction to the language of emotions. Now I'm going to record another video for you talking about something called instant state change. And we're going to talk about some of the dangers of that because instant state change is one of the most common emotional intelligence skills people learn, whether they think of it as an emotional intelligence skill or not. And I'm going to teach you the skill, but I'm also going to caution you because it gets used incorrectly almost everywhere I've ever seen it used and almost everywhere I've ever seen it taught. It's incredibly powerful, so you want to tune into that. For more on the emotional genius skills, language of emotions, and instant state change. So come back, join me for that video, and I think you're going to learn a lot. And right here, just remember, negative emotions, emotions of change. What does that mean? Something must change. Positive emotions, emotions of duplication. What does duplication mean? Do that again. We touched briefly on anger, fear, hopelessness, and guilt, just a handful of the emotions of change, and some very basic ideas and very basic strategies on how you would work with those. Come back and join me in the next video, and we're going to talk about instant state change and how you can grab control of your emotions and really honestly feel and create whatever emotion you need right here, right now, in this moment, and hang on to it for as long as you need it. So join me in the very next video for that. This is Scott Conway, PhD, JD, 8th degree black belt. Give me 24 hours, I will make you an emotional genius. I am the producer of Language of Emotions 101A and 101B, and author of Emotional IQ. And those books are available for you if you would like to explore these issues much more deeply. Come back and join me for the next video. Thank you.